What if the societal demand that you have to stay with one person for like 50 years is actually the root cause of all your relationship anxiety?
I mean, it's a terrifying thought for a lot of people.
It really is. But today, we are looking at a master yogi who claims that having 6 divorces isn't a failure. It's actually, a sign of profound, authentic spiritual success.
Yeah, which is completely counterintuitive to everything we're taught.
Right. So, okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. The mission today is to explore a really fascinating, highly unconventional, and honestly kind of paradigm-shattering take on how personal mindfulness practices impact our romantic lives.
And we are going deep today.
We are. Because when you hear the phrase yoga and relationships, I know exactly what you're picturing.
Mhm.
You probably expect this really predictable, overly sweet discourse on, like, achieving endless marital bliss.
Right, like 5 easy steps to find your ultimate soulmate.
Exactly. So you can walk off into the sunset, never argue about who loads the dishwasher, and just live happily ever after.
Yeah, the classic romantic comedy ending. I mean, it's a comforting narrative, but it's basically a fairy tale. It completely ignores the messy, evolving reality of human existence.
Totally. But today's source material, it just completely flips that script. We are looking at the teachings of Osman, who is widely known as the blind Muslim yogi.
Yes, and before we even touch his philosophy on love and cohabitation and divergence, we really have to establish exactly who this person is.
Because his background is staggering. It is just wild.
It is. It provides the necessary context for why his views on human connection are so radically different from, mainstream relationship advice. To give you the full unvarnished picture, Osman is a master-level bioenergy healer.
Which is not a term you hear every day.
No, not at all. He possesses telepathic healing capabilities, utilizing the principles of quantum entanglement.
Wow.
Yeah, and he specializes in critical care, recovery, and terminal illnesses. We are not talking about like casual weekend yoga retreats here.
Right, this isn't just stretching in a studio.
Exactly. He has been practicing healing alongside advanced level yoga and meditation for 50 years. 50 years of unbroken, rigorous dedication.
And he attained his first samadhi experience by the age of 19.
Which is incredible.
It is. For you listening who might not be familiar with that terminology, samadhi is the absolute highest state of meditative consciousness. It's this state of profound absorption where the illusion of the separate self just dissolves.
Right, it is the pinnacle of yogic achievement.
I mean, if you read Paramahansa Yogananda's book, Autobiography of a Yogi, which is like the gold standard text for this stuff.
Absolutely.
You see how rare that is? To reach that at 19 requires a level of focus that is almost incomprehensible to the average person.
It requires an absolute, uncompromising dedication to the actual mechanics of the human mind and the energy system. I mean, Osman has studied extensively across various schools of thought.
From the Far East to the Middle East and the West.
Yes, but what sets his approach apart is that it is deeply scientific. He is not interested in vague mysticism at all.
Right, he wants a result-based, simplified methodology.
Exactly. His lifelong mission has been to tirelessly simplify these highly complex, ancient protocols to achieve tangible outcomes.
Yeah.
He wants to revive these ancient sciences because they have a profound, practical application for improving modern life.
We're talking health, peace of mind, finances, and, of course, relationships. And his dedication to this is just intense. Like, we are talking about someone whose rigorous practice extended up to 18 hours a day in certain stages of his life.
18 hours, that's practically a full waking life.
Yeah, and even currently, he practices a minimum of 8 to 10 hours a day. 8 to 10 hours, just, as he puts it, sharpening the sword.
And that level of constant energetic refinement, that's exactly why he has such an uncommon ability to heal on very serious levels with incredibly high success rates.
Which we should mention, that's why his energy healing services and consultations, which are his only exclusively paid services, are so highly sought after, and they come at a premium price.
Right, but it's vital to note that he offers these services on a complimentary basis. He's very clear that his work is not a replacement for traditional medical treatment.
Yeah, it's something to enhance whatever is lacking in the other medical fields.
Exactly. He operates at that intersection of bioenergy and physical reality.
And for you listening, if you want to explore his work, he has made it incredibly accessible. You can find his resources and contact info at yogawellness786.com.
And he has a Patreon channel too, right?
Yeah, his Patreon has paid live daily video or online lessons, one-to-one consultations, and you can request group sessions. But here's the most generous part. He doesn't withhold information.
No, he offers extensive, unique advice and direction entirely for free on his YouTube channel.
Yep, and you can also find his insights on Apple Podcasts and Spotify by searching The Blind Muslim Yogi. Make sure you hit follow on those platforms.
He truly believes that this knowledge should be available to anyone willing to do the actual work, which brings us to the core question of this deep dive.
Right. With 50 years of intense scientific study of human energy, what does Osman say when asked? Can yoga and meditation actually help you find your soulmate?
I want you, the listener, to really think about your own relationship history right now. Have societal expectations of forever ever felt like a suffocating mismatch with your day-to-day reality?
Or have you ever felt guilty for just outgrowing someone you once loved?
Because before we can talk about finding the right person, Osman argues we have to look at how we define ourselves. And that is where the daily practice comes in, the foundation of knowing thyself.
So let's drill down into that. What's fascinating here is how Osman immediately strips away the romanticism. He grounds the conversation in extreme practicality.
Yes, he argues that a daily yoga and meditation practice is the absolute prerequisite for any functional relationship.
And he isn't saying you need to sit in a cave for 18 hours a day like he did.
No. He explicitly states that whether your practice is 5 minutes, 20 minutes, or 45 minutes, the duration matters less than the consistency. It is about anchoring yourself.
Okay, anchoring. What does that actually mean in a mechanical sense? Because he suggests that without this anchor, life is just happening to you.
You're letting life pass you by because you're too busy reacting to achieve any real calmness.
Which reminds me a lot of what they talk about on the Huberman Lab podcast. Like, I remember Andrew Huberman had Dr. Anna Lemke on.
Oh, yes, author of Dopamine Nation.
Exactly. And they discussed how our baseline dopamine levels are completely hijacked by external stimuli. We're constantly reacting to our phones, to stress, to societal expectations.
Right. And in another episode of Huberman Lab, he had Dr. Paul Conti on talking about trauma and relationships and how unanchored people essentially just react from their trauma baseline.
Yeah, and Dr. Robert Waldinger was on there too, discussing that famous Harvard study on adult development. All of it points to the fact that without an internal anchor, your external relationships suffer.
And to understand Osman's concept of anchoring, we really have to look at those mechanics of the modern mind. Throughout our day, our attention is constantly being pulled outward.
By emails, social media, the moods of our coworkers.
Exactly. Our internal energetic state becomes entirely dictated by our external environment. We are in a state of perpetual reaction.
So anchoring through meditation forces a hard stop to that reaction loop.
Yes, it is a period of time where you deliberately sever the connection to external stimuli and turn the awareness inward. Over time, this daily solitary practice physically and psychologically rewires you to be able to identify your own intrinsic baseline.
So it's about defining your core beliefs, your likes, your dislikes, and your goals, which actually brings to mind Tony Robbins.
Oh, sure.
Tony Robbins talks endlessly about state management and uncovering your actual core beliefs, right? Because if you don't know what they are, society assigns them to you.
Exactly. And Osman makes this brilliant, highly relatable analogy about New Year's resolutions. He points out that the vast majority of people abandon their resolutions after the first 2 weeks of January.
Oh, totally. The gyms are empty by January 15th.
Right. And why? Because they don't actually know what they want. They pick a resolution that sounds good. I want to lose weight. I want to read more. But it isn't anchored to their authentic, intrinsic self.
If they truly knew what was important to them at their core, they would achieve it.
Precisely. The failure of the New Year's resolution is just a symptom of a much deeper disease, a profound lack of self-knowledge. When you sit in silence for 20 minutes every day, you are forced to confront the difference between who you actually are and who you have been pretending to be for the convenience of others.
But I have to push back here, just slightly, on behalf of the skeptical listener. Doesn't everyone think they know themselves?
Most people assume they do, yes.
I mean, I know my favorite color is blue. I know I like Italian food. I know I want to be successful in my career. Why do I need a 40-minute meditation just to figure out my basic life goals? It sounds like we are overcomplicating basic self-awareness.
That is a very common objection. but it confuses surface-level preferences with deep energetic alignment. Knowing your favorite color is not self-knowledge. It is a superficial preference.
Right.
True self-knowledge, in the context of Osman's bioenergetic philosophy, is understanding the precise frequency of your own consciousness. It is knowing exactly what drains your life force and what replenishes it.
It's like what Stephen Bartlett explores on The Diary of a CEO.
Oh, he has great conversations on this.
Yeah, I'm thinking of 3 specific episodes. He had Mo Godot on, talking about the happiness equation and resetting baseline expectations.
Yes, and Simon Sinek on playing the infinite game in relationships.
Exactly. And he even had Dr. Tara Swart on, talking about the actual neuroscience of manifestation and neuroplasticity. All of them essentially agree with Osman here.
Yeah.
Without this deep, quiet anchoring, you are not making choices.
You are just fulfilling conditioned algorithms installed by your parents, your culture, and your past traumas.
Okay, that makes sense. So this practice isn't about carving an identity in stone like, I am this specific person forever, but rather facilitating an ever-evolving clarity.
It allows you to constantly check the compass. It forces you to define what actually fits into your daily lifestyle and future aspirations right now, today.
Because if you do not know your own core, you will inevitably adopt the core of whoever you are standing closest to.
Which perfectly transitions us to the next massive issue. Once we understand the necessity of this deep self-knowledge, we immediately run headfirst into a massive cultural roadblock.
The myth of the perfect partner, the concept of the soulmate.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is where Osman begins to systematically dismantle our societal romantic ideals. He fundamentally questions the very existence of a soulmate, as we conventionally understand it.
He argues that this concept is not just overly idealistic, it is actively dangerous to human happiness.
Dangerous is a strong word, but it's accurate. Let's explore the mechanics of that danger. He argues that the soulmate myth is dangerous because it puts a human being on a pedestal.
You start treating this person like an angel, like this flawless savior, rather than a messy, flawed, evolving human being.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of what we just discussed about self-knowledge, the danger becomes obvious. When you don't know who you are, you have a massive gaping hole in your psyche.
You lack an internal anchor.
Exactly. So when you meet someone who triggers a strong emotional response, you project all of your unfulfilled needs, all of your unresolved desires, and all of your expectations for salvation onto them.
You are demanding that they become your anchor. You are essentially outsourcing your spiritual and emotional stability to another person.
Yes, and it is a crushing, impossible burden to place on another human being. You are demanding that they perfectly compensate for everything you lack. That is what the pedestal is. It is an altar of impossible expectations.
This reminds me so much of the Mel Robbins podcast.
She covers this dynamic a lot.
She really does. Like when she had Dr. Armani Gravasilo on talking about narcissism and how dangerous it is to put people on pedestals.
Oh, that was a heavy episode.
And she had Dr. Shefali Saberi on discussing conscious parenting and relationships, how we project our childhood wounds onto our partners. And even Matthew Hussey talking about modern dating myths and how our standards are often just masked projections.
It all aligns perfectly. You're demanding an angel when you're dating a human.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Think about how we actually meet people in the modern world. We meet in what Osman calls the social phase, nightclubs, dating apps, dinner parties.
Right.
I like to think of this phase like a movie trailer. When you watch a movie trailer, you only see the explosive, exciting highlights.
You see the massive action set pieces, the perfectly delivered witty dialogue.
The dramatic, swelling music. You don't see the slow, boring exposition scenes. You don't see the continuity errors.
That is a highly accurate analogy. In those limited social spaces, people are portraying their absolute best selves. They are highly curated.
They're wearing their best clothes, their best perfume, and their best behavior. It is an avatar.
Exactly. You are dating their PR representative. You see them for 3 hours on a Friday night. They make you laugh. The lighting is dim. The drinks are flowing. And boom, your mind, which is desperate for an anchor because you haven't been meditating, immediately projects soulmate status onto this movie trailer.
You haven't seen the actual movie yet. You haven't seen them arguing with customer service on the phone, or dealing with a bad mood on a Tuesday morning, or stressing over a tax bill.
And this is why Osman advocates so strongly for mindfulness. Finding someone who fits into your daily lifestyle is fundamentally different from finding a cinematic soulmate.
A cinematic soulmate is a fantasy constructed during the social meeting phase.
Yes, a compatible partner is someone whose actual, mundane, day-to-day energetic frequency does not violently clash with your own when the movie trailer ends.
Which brings us to the inevitable moment when the movie actually starts. The trailer is over, the lights go down, and the reality begins. We are talking about cohabitation.
Moving in together.
Yeah. And this brings us to the harsh, unforgiving reality of proximity.
Osman leans on a very old, very true proverb here. Familiarity breeds contempt. He points out that living with someone day in and day out inevitably reveals their negative sides.
The mask slips, the PR representative goes home, and the actual flawed human being steps into the living room.
And according to the source material, this is where the person who was previously a worshipable figure, the angel on the pedestal, can suddenly transform into your worst nightmare.
This raises an important question. Why does society fail to prepare couples for this inevitable transition? We treat the wedding or the move-in date as the finish line.
When in reality, it is the exact moment the curated persona shatters. It isn't necessarily that your partner lied to you maliciously during the dating phase.
Right. It is simply biologically and psychologically impossible to maintain a best-self facade 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I mean, let's be real. Living with anyone changes the dynamic drastically. You can have a best friend in college, someone you think you know completely, somebody you take a bullet for.
But then you sign a lease together, and within 3 months, you are silently furious because of the specific way they load the dishwasher or how loudly they chew their cereal.
Exactly. If simple physical proximity can strain a platonic friendship that severely, how much more volatile is it when you add romantic expectations, shared finances, and the demand that this person act as your lifelong soulmate?
It creates a pressure cooker environment. Every minor annoyance is magnified because it threatens the fantasy of the perfect relationship.
When your roommate leaves a wet towel on the floor, it's annoying. When your soulmate leaves a wet towel on the floor, it feels like a betrayal of the grand romantic narrative.
Speaking of that pressure cooker, Ranveer Alabadia explores this constantly on The Ranveer Show.
Oh, he has incredible guests for this topic.
Yeah, he had Sadhguru on talking extensively about inner engineering and how we compulsively react to others.
And Gaurav Gopal Das, discussing how to apply a monk's mindset to modern relationships so you don't lose your mind over those wet towels.
Exactly. And Swami Mukundananda on mind management. All of them echo this idea that if you don't manage your own mind, the proximity of another person will drive you crazy.
It's also a major theme on Rainn Wilson's Soul Boom podcast.
Oh, I love Soul Boom.
He had Reza Aslan on, discussing how we project our own egos onto our spiritual and romantic ideals. He had Mayin Bialik talking about the intersection of science and religion in our daily lives.
And Ravanath Swami talking about the spiritual journey and how the ego clashes in intimate spaces.
Yes. So if cohabitation is this brutal crucible of reality, how does mindfulness specifically act as a buffer here?
That's what I want to know. Does meditating for 40 minutes a day magically make you not care about the wet towel on the floor? Does it make you blind to your partner's flaws?
Not at all. That is a massive misconception about meditation. Osman is very clear that yoga and meditation do not make you numb and they do not make you blind.
Quite the opposite.
Right. They make you hyper-aware. What the daily practice does is give you the internal stability to handle the reality of a flawed human being without the relationship immediately collapsing into contempt.
Can you break down the mechanics of that? How does sitting in silence translate to not yelling about the dishwasher?
It creates a micropause between stimulus and response. Let's go back to the bioenergetic aspect, which is Osman's specialty. When you see the wet towel, your conditioning triggers a spike of cortisol and adrenaline.
Your energy field constricts. You feel anger.
Exactly. Without mindfulness, you immediately identify with that anger and you react, you yell, you harbor resentment. But if you have been meditating daily, you have trained your consciousness to observe your own internal state.
You see the towel, you feel the spike of anger, but you do not become the anger.
You observe it. You realize, my partner's flawed. They are not the angel I projected. And because your self-esteem is anchored internally, their flaw does not threaten your existence.
That is profound. It's the difference between reacting to a shattered illusion and responding to a reality.
You can address the issue practically, rather than emotionally reacting to the death of the soulmate fantasy.
So cohabitation forces us to see each other's true, unvarnished selves. And if we are practicing yoga and meditation, as Osman suggests, we are not just surviving this reality, we are actively evolving through it.
But this leads us to the critical pivot in Osman's entire philosophy. It is the concept that really challenges everything we are taught.
What happens when two people evolve, but they don't evolve in the same direction?
This is the crux of the source material. Osman states that a dedicated yoga and meditation practice makes you an ever-evolving person. Your energy, your perspectives, your boundaries are constantly shifting and refining.
If your partner does not evolve at the exact same rate, or if they evolve in a completely different direction, you will inevitably grow out of the relationship. The pathways will diverge.
And he doesn't sugarcoat this. He views the expectation of a single lifelong relationship, the idea that you must stay with the person you married at 25 until you are 85, as an outdated 19th or 20th century concept.
He essentially views it as an unnatural constraint on human development.
To illustrate this, he uses a tremendously compelling analogy: the identical twin. Think about identical twins. These are two human beings who share the exact same DNA.
They were born at the exact same time to the same parents, raised in the exact same household environment.
They are as close to a duplicate human as physically possible.
Right. And yet,
As they grow, they make different choices. One might develop a passion for art, the other for finance. One might move to a bustling city, the other to a quiet rural town.
they marry different types of people.
Over the medium to long term, their pathways radically diverge. They remain deeply connected, but their life trajectories are undeniably different.
So Osman's point is, if two people who share identical DNA and identical environments inevitably diverge based on their own internal evolution, how incredibly arrogant or just deeply naive is it for society to demand that two genetically distinct individuals from completely different historical backgrounds and traumas must remain on the exact same trajectory for 50 years?
It is statistically and biologically absurd. We are demanding a level of stasis that does not exist anywhere else in nature.
Especially when you introduce deep spiritual or bioenergetic practices. This reminds me of the Buddha at the Gas Pump podcast with Rick Archer.
Oh, Rick has explored this exact phenomenon with so many spiritual teachers.
He really has. He had Adyashanti on talking about how spiritual awakening fundamentally shifts your relationship to everyone around you.
And Locke Kelly, discussing effortless mindfulness and how it changes your baseline operating system.
And most notably for this topic, he interviewed Dr. Bonnie Greenwell about Kundalini awakenings. She talked about how these massive evolutionary energy shifts, which Osman is obviously intimately familiar with as a master bioenergy healer, can literally change your neurological makeup.
Exactly. Gopi Krishna wrote extensively about this evolutionary energy too. When your literal neurological and energetic makeup changes, to expect your partner, who may not be doing that same internal work, to perfectly align with your new frequency is impossible.
You cannot mold another individual to your exact path. To try to do so is a form of control, not love.
Joe Rogan talks about this a lot on the Joe Rogan Experience, actually.
Yeah, his episode with Naval Ravikant touches on this finding peace and how meditation detaches you from needing others to be a certain way.
And his conversations with Andrew Huberman on the neurobiology of focus, or even with Duncan Trussell.
Oh, the Duncan Trussell episodes are amazing. They always get into the spirituality of impermanence, accepting that things and people change.
Right. But I hear that, and intellectually it makes total sense. But as a listener, I have to admit, it brings up a lot of discomfort.
It does. It makes you wonder, so what does this all mean? Are we doomed to just outgrow everyone we love? It sounds incredibly lonely. If the natural byproduct of spiritual growth is leaving people behind, why should we invest deeply in anyone at all?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to reframe what leaving people behind actually means. Osman is not advocating for cold abandonment.
He is reframing divergence not as a tragic failure, but as a healthy, necessary byproduct of personal growth.
Yes. Refusing to accept divergence is the real problem in society, meaning the suffering isn't caused by the fact that we grow apart. The immense suffering is caused by the societal expectation that we shouldn't grow apart, and the guilt we feel when we inevitably do.
Right. I think about Rumi's poetry here. Rumi constantly wrote about the pain of separation, but also how that separation is the catalyst for deeper spiritual connection with the divine.
And Swami Vivekananda and Ramakrishna both taught about the pursuit of ultimate truth over worldly attachments. They understood that personal evolution eventually requires shedding old forms.
When a tree outgrows a pot, we don't say the tree failed. We say it needs a new environment to continue its natural expansion.
But when a human outgrows a relationship container, society brands them a failure. Osman is demanding that we stop punishing people for evolving.
Which brings us to perhaps the most controversial, paradigm-shifting part of this entire deep dive. If outgrowing a relationship isn't a failure, then our traditional metrics for a successful relationship need a complete and total overhaul.
We have to tear down the scoreboard and build a new one.
And Osman doesn't just theorize about this from an ivory tower. He offers his own life as the ultimate transparent case study. He shares very openly and without apology that he has had 6 divorces.
6 divorces. For the average person heavily conditioned by traditional societal norms, that number induces immediate judgment.
Oh, 100%. The assumption is swift. Someone with multiple divorces must be unstable, they must be a playboy, they must be fundamentally incapable of commitment or
I'll
compromise.
be honest, I really have to wrestle with this. It's a shocking number. To most people, 6 divorces sounds like absolute relational chaos. It sounds like a trail of destruction.
But Osman proactively defends against this assumption. And the reality he describes is the exact opposite of chaos. He maintains that he is not a playboy. Instead, he explains that in each of these marriages, they simply reached a crossroads.
Their pathways diverged, they recognized the divergence, and they parted ways. But the crucial element, the detail that completely disrupts the societal narrative, is what happened after the divorces.
Osmond states that he now has incredibly close, trusting friendships with his ex-wives. He describes being able to pick up the phone and have a normal, amazing conversation with them, treating them like a best buddy.
He goes even further than that. He claims that he can trust his ex-wives implicitly with highly important responsibilities.
He implies that this trust might even be deeper than the trust one has in a traditional spouse who doesn't know all the nuanced historical aspects of a partner's life.
He has known these women intimately. They have shared a segment of their life journey, and that bond of truth remains, even if the romantic container has dissolved.
This completely reimagines success. It forces us to ask a very uncomfortable question. What is a successful relationship?
Is a 50-year marriage successful if the couple hasn't spoken a meaningful, vulnerable word to each other in a decade?
Is it a success if they are staying together purely out of financial fear or fear of societal shame while secretly resenting each other?
When you put it that way, the traditional model sounds like a hostage situation. We view decades of silent endurance as a success, but we view Osmond's 6 deeply respectful, evolving, truthful relationships that transition into lifelong friendships as a failure.
It is entirely backward. This paradigm shift, it reminds me of Lewis Howes on the School of Greatness.
Oh, absolutely. Lewis tackles this kind of reevaluation of success constantly.
He had Jay Shetty on talking about redefining purpose and love timelines, and Esther Perel, her episode on mating in captivity and fidelity completely shatters the idea that a relationship must be permanent to be meaningful.
And he had Dr. Joe Dispenza on, explaining how changing your brain and connecting to the quantum field literally changes who you are compatible with. Osmond's paradigm shifts the goal of connection from endurance at all costs to authentic connection for a season.
He is suggesting that having multiple substantive, deep relationships across a lifespan relationships that honor the reality of human evolution and massive personal change is far healthier than forcing one relationship to span 50 years of divergence.
And Osmond doesn't just defend his own model. He launches a very sharp, very pointed critique against the traditional model. Which brings us to his most provocative claim.
And I want to pause here and be incredibly clear to you, the listener. We are impartially reporting the content provided in the source material. We are not endorsing the statistic, nor are we taking sides on the modern versus traditional marriage debate.
Yes, we are simply conveying Osmond's stated opinion to understand the depth of his philosophy. That is an important distinction.
So the claim Osman makes is that, in his opinion, 99% of couples married for 3 or more decades have been sexually unfaithful.
He poses a hypothetical scenario, suggesting that if you were to put these long-term couples on a polygraph test, the vast majority would fail regarding fidelity.
99%. That is a staggering heavy statistic to throw out there. It essentially accuses the institution of long-term marriage of being built on a foundation of systemic deception.
But we have to look at why he uses this number. He uses it to make a much broader ethical point about how we treat each other.
Right. He argues that holding someone hostage in a relationship where the energetic connection has died, or resorting to secret affairs to fulfill unmet needs while maintaining a public facade of the perfect marriage, is far worse.
Far more destructive to the human spirit, yes, than simply recognizing divergence and cleanly moving on.
This raises a massive ethical debate. If we view this strictly through his lens, he is asking, is it more ethical to end a relationship when you've grown apart, causing temporary pain but allowing both people to find true alignment?
Or is it more ethical to maintain a facade of lifelong unity through deception, affair, and silent resentment, just to satisfy society's demand for forever?
This raises an important question about the very definition of fidelity. What does it actually mean to be faithful?
Does true fidelity mean being true to the legal and societal institution of marriage, regardless of the internal reality? Or does true fidelity mean being true to your own evolving nature and respecting your partner enough to let them go when the alignment is gone, rather than lying to them and to yourself?
It completely reframes how we look at the modern dating landscape. Today, we see high divorce rates, we see serial monogamy, we see people leaving marriages in their 40s and 50s to start over.
And the traditional societal narrative tells us that this is an illness of society. It tells us that people are selfish, that they lack commitment, that the fabric of society is breaking down.
But Osman looks at that exact same data and sees the opposite. He views the current trend toward shorter, shifting relationships as a form of natural selection.
He sees a society that is organically moving toward a healthier, more authentic way of living. We are finally shedding the 19th century expectations that don't fit our current evolutionary state.
We are living longer, our environments are changing faster, our access to information and self-development is unprecedented. To expect our relationship structures to remain identical to those of our ancestors is illogical.
So he is basically saying society isn't broken, society is just finally refusing to lie.
Precisely. Now, he isn't advocating for flippancy. He isn't saying you should leave a marriage the first time you have an argument about the dishwasher.
No, the prerequisite to all of this is the daily mindfulness practice. You must be doing the deep, quiet work of self-knowledge. You must try to have substantive, good relationships. You must communicate.
But when the internal work reveals that the growth has fundamentally stopped and the paths have irrevocably diverged, the most ethical, loving thing you can do is release the hostage.
Wow. Okay, so bringing this deep dive full circle, we started by looking at how a master bioenergy healer views human connection.
And the ultimate value of a dedicated yoga and meditation practice, according to the teachings of the blind Muslim yogi, is absolutely not that it acts as a magical magnet to attract your forever soulmate.
It is not going to guarantee you a romantic comedy ending.
No, it is far more profound than that. The daily practice guarantees that you will know yourself. And from that deep, scientific, energetic anchoring in your own reality, you develop true intuition.
You develop the capacity for actual empathy, which means empathy for your partner's actual needs and flaws, rather than the needs you want them to have to fulfill your soulmate fantasy.
Like what Deepak Chopra discusses regarding spiritual partnerships, it's about mutual evolution, not just comforting each other's egos.
It gives you the courage to form deeply substantive, authentic relationships in the present moment. And crucially, it gives you the grace, the strength, and the ethical clarity to leave them when the paths inevitably diverge.
Transforming what could be a bitter, resentful end into a transition toward lifelong, truthful friendship.
And for anyone who is captivated by this radical, liberating approach to life, spirituality, and relationship health, I cannot overstate the value of exploring Osman's work directly.
His 50 years of dedication, his mastery of bioenergy healing and quantum entanglement, and his ability to simplify the complex. It is a perspective that bridges ancient wisdom and hyper-modern reality.
Absolutely. You can find all of his contemporary discussions, resources, and contact information at yogawellness786.com.
Remember, he offers incredibly deep, transformative insights entirely for free on his YouTube channel. If you prefer audio, open Apple Podcasts or Spotify right now, search for The Blind Muslim Yogi and hit follow.
And for those who are ready to dive deeper and seek direct guidance, his Patreon offers paid live classes, group talks, and one-on-one consultations, alongside his premium energy healing services.
It is a vast reservoir of practical, result-based knowledge for anyone tired of the fairy tales.
I want to leave you, the listener, with one final lingering thought. We started this deep dive by talking about the anxiety caused by the societal demand for forever.
We are terrified of relationships failing because we measure success purely by duration.
So I want you to mull this over tonight. If we completely remove the societal pressure that a relationship must last until death to be considered successful,
How would that change the way you treat the person sitting across from you at dinner tonight?
if you knew they weren't legally or societally trapped with you forever, if you knew they were a free, evolving being who could diverge at any moment,
Would it make you appreciate the fleeting, beautiful reality of the present moment with them even more?
that is the ultimate question of mindfulness and love. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Keep questioning the fairy tales. Anchor yourself. We'll catch you next time.